Have you ever felt that life still expects too much from you, even after all these years? It's a strange feeling, isn't it? You've already lived through so many phases, raised a family, worked hard, made sacrifices, and held yourself together through life's storms. Yet, even in these quieter moments, there's still a weight on your heart, a gentle pressure, a quiet voice whispering that you should be doing more, that you should have everything under control. Not control over others, perhaps, but over your health, your emotions, your finances, your relationships, your time, even over aging itself, over life. And it's exhausting. Not the kind of tiredness that comes from physical work, but a deeper weariness. It's the fatigue that comes from constantly trying to hold on, trying to understand, trying to make everything right, even when life clearly wants to move in another direction. You might not speak of it, most people don't, but you feel it deep inside, in your bones, in your breath, in those still moments when you finally pause. Lately, you might have heard this phrase more often, let it go. But what does that really mean? Does it mean giving up, doing nothing, becoming passive? Some may think so, that letting go means surrendering or losing your grip on life, fading into the background. But those who have walked the path of reflection, mindfulness, or quiet presence understand it differently. They know that letting go isn't weakness, it's wisdom. The kind of wisdom that gently knows when it's time to stop forcing and simply allow life to flow. When forcing something only creates more suffering. When peace isn't found by pushing harder, but by stepping back and softening. So today, let's reflect together on a quiet truth. Peace often comes not from trying harder, but from learning to let go. In the next few minutes, we're going to explore a gentle yet radical way of living, one that ancient wisdom traditions like Taoism and Zen Buddhism have whispered to humanity for centuries. We'll walk alongside the voice of Alan Watts, a teacher who didn't just study these teachings, but lived them and translated them for the modern world with humor, clarity, and compassion. This isn't a call to retreat from life. It's an invitation to return to it, to your life, but from a place of softness, spaciousness, and deep presence. So wherever you are right now, sitting by a window, walking slowly through your home, or just resting in a quiet chair, let us begin this journey together. Not by doing more, but by breathing, by listening, and by remembering. Sometimes when you stop forcing life, life finally begins to flow. Part 1. The silent exhaustion of always trying. There's a kind of tiredness that no one talks about. It doesn't show up in your medical tests. It doesn't come with a fever or a visible wound. It settles quietly into your chest like fog. Soft, but heavy. And perhaps you've felt it too. In those moments when the house is quiet, when no one's calling, and yet your heart still races with the weight of things left undone, of decisions that never seem to get easier, of expectations you never asked for but somehow carry like bricks in your coat. It's the exhaustion of always trying to keep the family together, trying to stay young and sharp and in control, trying to keep up with a world that no longer speaks your pace, a world that rushes forward while you are just beginning to appreciate the stillness of morning light on your kitchen counter. And worst of all, trying to make peace with a mind that doesn't seem to stop, that keeps asking, am I doing enough? Am I still useful? What happens if I let go just a little? You see, the strange irony of growing older is that while our bodies slow down, the pressure doesn't. In fact, for many it grows louder. You're told to stay productive, to keep active, to make the most of your time, as if time were a race, not a river. Even in retirement, life becomes another project. Health routines to follow, social calendars to maintain, financial plans to double-check, doctors to visit, children to support, grandchildren to watch. And in the midst of it all, a quiet voice inside you asks, When do I get to rest? Not just sleep, but rest. Let me share a story with you. Not a grand parable, but something real. A woman named Ruth in her early 70s came to a meditation retreat where I once volunteered. She had been a teacher all her life, a caretaker for her parents, and then later for her husband through a long illness. When he passed, she told me, I thought I'd finally feel free, but I didn't. I just felt empty and tired. What surprised her most, she said, wasn't the grief, but the realization that even without anyone to take care of, she still couldn't stop doing. She felt guilty for resting, useless when quiet, ashamed of silence. This is the exhaustion we're talking about. Not the tiredness of too much to do, but the exhaustion of never letting go. The spiritual weight of believing that if you stop, if you soften, life will somehow fall apart. It doesn't tell us to stop living or to isolate ourselves on a mountaintop. Instead, it whispers something gentle. Your suffering is not always in the doing, but in the clinging. Clinging to identities, to outcomes, to the belief that if we just try hard enough, we'll finally feel okay. But have you noticed, the more we try to force life into place, to make everything right, the more it slips through our fingers like sand. The Buddha once taught about the second arrow. The first arrow is pain, unavoidable, aging, loss, disappointment. But the second arrow is the one we shoot ourselves. Resistance, the fight against what is. That's the arrow we can choose to put down. So I ask you gently, where are you still trying? Not out of love or joy, but out of fear. Fear of being forgotten, of being irrelevant, of being left behind, and more importantly, what might happen if you stopped? What if life doesn't need you to try so hard? What if peace is not something you earn, but something that waits patiently for you to stop running? Part 2. What it really means to let go. Letting go. Such a simple phrase, only 2 words, and yet for many of us, it feels like trying to hold a cloud in our hands. Vague, elusive, beautiful perhaps, but slippery. Because deep down, most of us don't really know what it means to let go. Not in a world that tells us from the moment we're born to hold on tightly, to stay in control, to never give up. Letting go, to some, sounds like giving up, like waving a white flag to life, like becoming irrelevant, or worse, invisible. But what if letting go isn't weakness? What if it's not about abandoning your responsibilities or becoming passive and aimless? What if, instead, letting go is an act of profound wisdom, the kind that recognizes when holding on does more harm than good? There's a story from the Buddhist tradition that speaks to this very point. A young monk once came to an old teacher and asked, "Master, how do I find peace?" The master smiled, picked up a small cup, and began pouring water into it. Slowly at first, then faster. The cup filled, then overflowed, spilling all over the floor. The young monk looked confused. The master said, "This is your mind. It's too full. You keep pouring in plans, fears, regrets, control, and wonder why there's no peace." He gently set the cup down and added, "Empty the cup, then peace will come." Letting go, in its truest sense, is emptying the cup. It's not erasing your memories or forgetting your responsibilities. It's not losing your values. It's the gentle art of loosening your grip on how things should be and softening into how things are. Think for a moment of how we hold things when we're afraid to lose them. Our hands tense up, our shoulders rise, our breath shortens. Whether it's a person, a plan, or a past we haven't made peace with, we grip so tightly that the very act of holding becomes a source of pain. Now imagine setting that thing down, just for a while. Not throwing it away, not rejecting it, just resting your arms. Can you feel the difference? Letting go is rest for the soul. It's an invitation to release the exhausting effort of control, Not because nothing matters, but because some things matter so deeply they can only unfold when we stop interfering. Like a flower that blooms in its own time, like the tide that comes in when the moon is ready. One woman I once met, Eleanor, used to say she spent most of her 60s and 70s trying to manage everyone's happiness. Her grown children, her grandchildren, even her neighbors. She gave advice when they didn't ask for it. She worried constantly, trying to fix problems that weren't hers to fix. And then one day, her son gently told her, "Mum, I don't need you to fix everything. I just need you to sit with me sometimes." That moment changed her, not immediately but gradually. She started listening more and fixing less. She learned that being present, truly present, was more healing than any advice she could give. That's letting go. In Buddhist philosophy, there is a concept called upekkha, equanimity. It means maintaining inner balance. No matter what life throws your way, it's not apathy, it's not cold detachment. It's the warm, steady knowing that you can meet life with an open palm, not a clenched fist. And so perhaps the real question isn't, can you let go? But rather, can you trust what will come if you do? Because here's the truth. No one tells us in the culture of control. When you let go, you don't lose control. You lose the illusion of control, and in the space that opens up, something softer, wiser, more real begins to arise. Peace. Not because you finally fixed everything, but because you no longer need to. Let's pause here for a moment and consider something quietly uncomfortable. Why is it so hard for us, especially those of us who've lived through decades of experience, to stop striving? Why do we still feel, even in our 60s, 70s and 80s, that we must prove something, do more, or stay in control? The answer lies partly in the cultural soil we were planted in. Western society has long cultivated a certain narrative that our worth is tied directly to our productivity, that the more we do, the more we are. From the schoolyards of our youth to the workplaces of our middle years, we've been measured, evaluated, and rewarded for output, hard work, efficiency, progress. These values aren't inherently bad. In fact, they helped many of us survive, build homes, raise families, create opportunity where there was none. But somewhere along the way, this useful framework hardened into a trap, one that doesn't easily let go of us, even as we grow older. It's the trap of over-identifying with doing, while forgetting the quiet value of simply being. Take James, for example, a retired engineer. I once sat beside during a community meditation circle. In his professional life, he was a high achiever, logical, precise, respected. But after retiring at 67, he found himself adrift. His days, once filled with purpose and deadlines, felt strangely empty. "I thought retirement would feel like freedom," he said softly. "But instead, I feel useless." His voice cracked. "If I'm not fixing something, designing something, managing something, then who am I?" This question echoes in the hearts of so many. You see, we've been conditioned, almost hypnotized, to believe that rest is laziness, that slowing down is giving up, that stillness is failure. And because of this, even when the body begs for pause, the mind tightens its grip. We double down on effort. We fill our days with activity, not out of joy but out of fear. Fear of becoming invisible, fear of not mattering, fear of being left behind. But the Dharma, the quiet teaching of the Buddha, offers us another way. It invites us to see through this illusion, to recognize that true value isn't in what you produce, but in how fully you are present in this life, this moment, this breath. In the Dhammapada, an ancient Buddhist text, it is written, "Better than 1,000 hollow words is one word that brings peace, and perhaps in the same way, better than 100 rushed actions is one action done with awareness." sincerity and love. But modern life doesn't often reward awareness. It rewards results. It glorifies speed. It celebrates the endless pursuit of more success, more goals, more possessions, more information. And so we become like hamsters on a wheel, running without knowing why, moving but not arriving. Eventually, the wheel stops. Retirement, illness, a life event. Something makes you pause, and if you're not prepared, not spiritually grounded, that pause can feel terrifying, like the ground has vanished beneath your feet. This is why Buddhism emphasizes the inner shift, the journey from doing to being, from ambition to awareness, from outer accomplishment to inner peace. You are not what you produce. You are not your resume. You are not the sum of your routines or the achievements etched on plaques. You are something far more beautiful, something timeless. But to touch that truth, you must be willing to step off the wheel, to look past the metrics and into the mystery, to trust that your value doesn't end when your role changes. And to remember this, in the silence beyond effort, you begin to hear your soul again. Part 4. Living lightly, living wisely. There comes a point in life, often quietly, without announcement, when we begin to ask different questions. Not, what can I achieve next? But rather, how can I live with more ease, with more meaning, with more grace? That's the turning point. And for many of us, it arrives sometime after 60, not with fireworks, but with a slow inner murmur. A sense that we're not meant to keep carrying the same burdens, that the pace we've maintained for decades is no longer ours to keep. That life is inviting us to live differently, not smaller, not lesser, but lighter. Lighter doesn't mean careless. It doesn't mean drifting through life without direction. It means choosing what truly matters and gently letting go of what doesn't. It means, perhaps for the first time in decades, pausing long enough to listen inward, to hear the quiet voice beneath the noise. The voice that says, you don't need to prove anything anymore, you are already enough. One afternoon, I met a retired nurse named Linda. She was 74 and had spent most of her adult life caring for others, patients, co-workers, her 3 children, her aging parents. She told me that when she finally stopped working, she didn't know how to spend her days. I kept signing up for things, she said, volunteering, joining book clubs, watching the grandkids, organizing potlucks. But at night, I still felt anxious, like I was failing at retirement. I asked her gently what she was afraid of. She thought for a moment, then whispered that if I stop, I'll disappear. That struck a chord. So many of us equate slowing down with fading away, but in truth, slowing down is often how we begin to reappear, not to others, but to ourselves, to the parts of us long buried under roles and responsibilities, to the wisdom we didn't have time to hear when we were too busy rushing through life. In Buddhism, there's a practice known as right effort, one of the steps on the Noble Eightfold Path. It doesn't mean more effort. It means wise effort. Effort that is rooted in compassion, not compulsion. Action that comes from clarity, not anxiety. Living lightly is an expression of that wisdom. It's saying no with kindness to the obligations that no longer align with your heart. It's choosing depth over busyness. It's spending an hour watching the sunset instead of multitasking through dinner. It's sitting quietly with a friend instead of rushing to fill silence with words. It's realizing that sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is rest. The Buddha once told his disciples, just as a candle cannot burn without fire, men cannot live without a spiritual life. That spiritual life doesn't require monasteries or chanting or robes. It requires presence. It requires choosing what brings light, not just what brings obligation. So perhaps the practice at this age, at any age, is not to add more to your plate, but to gently begin taking things off. The tasks, the expectations, the guilt, the shoulds, and in the space that remains, you might just find joy, simple joy, quiet joy, the kind that doesn't need to be photographed or posted or praised, the kind that sits with you as you drink your tea slowly, or take a walk with no destination, or feel the breeze brush your skin and realize this too is enough. To live lightly doesn't mean giving up on life. It means finally learning to move in harmony with it. And that is true wisdom. Part 5. The quiet courage to trust life. Again. Trust. Such a small word, yet one of the hardest things to offer, especially in the later chapters of life. We've seen so much. We've experienced disappointments, broken promises, and countless moments where life didn't unfold the way we hoped. Over time, we learned to expect pain, to guard ourselves by trying to stay in control. And slowly, almost without noticing, our trust begins to fade, like a shoreline quietly shaped and worn by restless waves. But here's a gentle truth we often forget. Trust isn't just a feeling, it's a choice, a brave one. Because choosing to trust life again, after all you've witnessed, after everything you've lost, after all the unexpected turns, requires more courage than any battle you've ever faced. It means opening your heart to the unknown, not blindly, but willingly. Not because you're certain of what's ahead, but because you finally understand that needing to know everything was never peace. It was pressure. In Buddhist philosophy, there's a word called saddha, often translated as faith, though it's gentler than the Western idea of blind belief. Saddha is a quiet, steady confidence, not in rules or fixed outcomes, but in the natural unfolding of life itself. It's the same trust a tree has when it knows the right time to bloom again, the same effortless rhythm of your breath returning, the same persistence of your heart that keeps beating no matter what. I once spoke with a man named Walter, 81 years old and widowed for nearly a decade. He told me something I'll never forget. I used to think letting go meant falling apart, but then I realized sometimes letting go is how things finally come together. He said he used to plan every detail of his days, not from joy, but from fear. Fear of loneliness, fear of wasting time, fear of not being enough. But slowly, after years of grieving, something within him began to soften. One morning he said, "I didn't open my calendar, I just opened the window and let the day tell me what it wanted." That kind of courage isn't loud or dramatic. It's not the kind that earns applause or recognition. It's quiet, the kind that softly says, it's okay to slow down, to rest, to trust. To trust that your worth isn't measured by how much you achieve today. To trust that life can still surprise you in gentle ways. To trust that you are still supported, even when things seem to fall apart. The Buddha once said, "A mind unshaken by the winds of the world is a blessing." But to reach that state, we must stop trying to control the wind and instead learn how to sail with it. You're not meant to carry everything. You don't have to have all the answers, and you're never too old to trust again. In truth, it may be now, in this quieter season of life, when the outside noise fades and your inner voice grows stronger, that trust finds its richest soil, not as something you push for, but as something you gently allow. So maybe the question isn't, can I trust life again, but am I ready to stop resisting it? Because when you do, when you slowly release the need to control every wave and simply let yourself flow with the current, you may realize life hasn't forgotten you at all. It's been waiting, patiently, lovingly, for you to return home. Home to yourself, to the present moment, to the peace that never truly left you, just hidden beneath years of effort. And now, like a garden finally given sunlight, that peace begins to bloom again. Conclusion: the stillness after the storm. So here we are, dear friend, at the quiet end of a long reflection, and perhaps at the gentle beginning of a new way of being. Together, we've walked through the soft landscapes of truth that often go unnoticed amid the noise of modern life. We spoke of that deep kind of tiredness, not from doing too much, but from trying too hard to keep everything together. We explored what it truly means to let go, not as a form of defeat, but as a doorway to freedom. We looked honestly at the endless chase for control and achievement, a story many of us were taught to live by, but which no longer aligns with the rhythm of our hearts. We remembered that to live wisely is to live lightly, not with detachment, but with gentleness and discernment, with kindness toward yourself. And at last, we came to trust. That quiet, courageous act of saying, "I don't know where the river leads, but I'm willing to flow with it." There is no age when these truths lose their meaning. In fact, as the years pass, they become even more precious. Because now, more than ever, you've earned the right to rest, to soften, to release what no longer nourishes your peace, to simply be here, not managing life, but truly experiencing it, with all its seasons, its mysteries, and its quiet gifts. So before you return to your day, take a moment, just one quiet breath, and gently ask yourself, where am I still trying to control life? Where could I ease my hold, even slightly? And what peace might appear if I simply let go? You don't need to have all the answers right now. Let the question rest within you. Let it walk beside you for a while. Allow it to whisper softly in the background as you move through your moments ahead. And if something within you shifted during this reflection, even just a little, perhaps that's your sign, not to do more, but to listen more, to trust more, to live not from effort, but from presence. Because when you stop trying to force life, it begins to unfold naturally before you, like a flower opening when it's ready. If today's message resonated with you, here we journey together through life's deeper questions, guided by stories, stillness, and the gentle light of Buddhist wisdom. And as you go, may you walk softly, not ahead of life, nor behind it, but right beside it, with courage, with kindness, and with the quiet trust that everything will unfold in its own time. Until we meet again,